you joining us on social media by following us at Beyond Benign and giving a shout out content that you use. So I would like to remind everyone that by registering for the webinar series, you've agreed to our code of conduct. We are just essentially asking for participants to be kind, accepting, and open to varying viewpoints and opinions. This series will be recorded, and while it is expected that the video feed will focus on the presenter, your voice and video feed could appear at some point. By attending this discussion, you give your consent to allow us to post video and/or sound. As we launch into this webinar, we would also like to pause for a land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge the unceded land on which Beyond Benign operates. We're located in the state of Massachusetts, which has been the traditional land of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts nations. We acknowledge the history of this land, and we encourage others to acknowledge the unceded lands and territories belonging to the indigenous nations across the world and wherever that you are tuning in from. And did it again. Hold on. We would like to pause a moment and give thanks to our sponsors who make this all possible, all those great people that you see on the screen. Beyond Benign is an organization that works to foster a green chemistry community that empowers educators to transform chemistry education for a sustainable future. It's our vision to ensure that chemical building blocks of products that's used every day are healthy and safe for the environment and for humans. And we believe that education is the most powerful and critical component to achieving this. Beyond Benign works across the educational continuum by investing in educators, fostering peer support networks, and developing tools and resources from K-12 all the way through industry. The reality is that there is a demand for green chemistry skills, and we don't currently have the workforce equipped to solve sustainability problems using chemistry. We're excited to feature two presenters this evening who are working to change this at the K-12 level. Also, as a thank you for being part of our green chemistry community, we are giving away 5 copies of the book Green Chemistry, Theory and Practice, signed by Dr. Warner, written by John and Paula Nastis, co-founders of the field of green chemistry. This book introduces the design, development, and evaluation processes of new green chemistry methodologies. Enter by Earth Day this year, April 22nd, for a chance to win. Our goal tonight is to have an interactive session to show you ways to align your practices with green chemistry. If you have questions during the presentation portion, please type them in the chat. We'll have time to break into small groups later for discussion as well. So please allow me now to introduce our guest presenters. Ken Hoffman joined the Beyond Benign lead teacher team in 2020. Prior to teaching chemistry, Ken was a graduate student and a freelance musician. Ken completed his Bachelor of Education in Chemistry and Instrumental Music at the University of Toronto in 2013. During his stay in Toronto, Ken began a mentorship in green chemistry education under Professor Andy Dix. Throughout his teaching career, Ken has been an active contributor to chemistry education, including numerous conference presentations, among them the Biennial Conference on Chemistry Education, the ChemEd Conference, and the International Conference on Chemistry Education. Ken's unique chemistry teaching experience spans from grade 8 all the way to second-year university. Once a world traveler, he now calls Calgary, Canada his home, with his wife and 2 children, where he teaches middle school science and math. Scott Carlson grew up in New York City, specifically the South Bronx. He received his Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and Education at St. Joseph's College and went on to earn his master's in teaching chemistry from the Steinhardt School of Teaching and Learning at NYU. Since 2006, Scott has taught at Benjamin Banneker Academy, the Green School for Environmental Careers, and the Academy for Conservation and the Environment. Currently, he is the peer collaborative lead science teacher at W.H. Maxwell High School for Career and Technical Education, where he is responsible for professional development for the staff and teaches Regents Chemistry, Forensics, and AP Environmental Science. He is also a lead chemistry teacher and mentor for New York City chemistry teachers. Scott is pleased to lecture in Principles of Chemistry, General Chemistry, and General Chemistry Laboratory at New York City Technical College. He's also a Syed Innovators Fellow from the Jumki Basu Foundation and is certified in school building and school district leadership in New York State. He's been a lead teacher at Beyond Benign since March of 2018 and has been using green chemistry laboratories in his classroom since attending the Train the Trainer in 2015. Recently, Scott joined the green chemistry teaching and learning community as co-committee chair in driving awareness and adaptation of green chemistry and professional development. If you have any questions at all for either of our presenters this evening, please type those in the chat. We will have our team of lead teachers standing by monitoring the chat to try and get those answered for you either there or immediately following the presentation. Now, I would like to turn over the dialogue to this evening's presenters, Scott Carlson and Ken Hoffman.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here tonight to talk to you about just how we're aligning our chemistry curriculum with the Beyond Benign curriculum, discuss ways of actually implementing the curriculum we talk about, and kind of walking the walk as well as talking the talk with regard to sustainable education. I'm going to take a moment now to share my screen, and then we'll have a few more things to talk to you about. Can everyone see my screen at this moment? Excellent. So before we formally begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to do a few land acknowledgements of our own, as Ken and I both come from different areas. And on the screen right now, you should be able to see the land acknowledgement for Ken.
Thank you, Scott. I think it's vitally important that any conversation about sustainability acknowledges those who've lived sustainably upon the land for generations. I'm coming from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which is just north of Montana. This is the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, which is an urban First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Wesley First Nations, and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Over to you, Scott.
I hail from New York City, and in New York City, we have the New York City Commission on Human Rights. Speaking from their land acknowledgement, we acknowledge the land designated as New York City to be the homeland of the Lenape, who were violently displaced as a result of European settler colonialism over the course of 400 years. The Lenape are a diasporic people that remain closely connected with this land and are its rightful stewards. We also recognize that New York City has one of the largest urban Native American and Indigenous populations in the United States. The Commission acknowledges its role in not centering Native American Indigenous voices in our work in the past, and as a result has not appropriately addressed the needs of the communities and their experiences with discrimination. This dynamic exists within the broader context of ruptured relationships between Native American and Indigenous communities and municipal governments, resulting from centuries of state-sanctioned genocide. The Commission is committed to forging a new trajectory for our agency by building sustainable relationships with Lenape and other Native American Indigenous peoples. We are actively engaging Native American Indigenous leaders as equal partners of collaboration, fostering a space that prioritizes their voices, direct our services in ways that best serve citizens of these nations and members of this community. Our goals tonight are, of course, aligning your practice with green chemistry. What you're going to hear from us today is discussions on how we align green chemistry to our practices. We're going to share multiple ready-to-use practices and examples for how we did it. And we're going to try to facilitate some opportunities for you to network as well. So first opportunity is to hear where you're from so you can see openly where everyone else in this forum is hailing from. So there's going to be a link in the chat now. There we go. For you to be able to post so you can see directly where your colleagues are hailing from this evening. Thank you so much for sharing. We've got a wide variety of people this evening. From Australia and Uzbekistan, Kingston, New York. I'm looking forward to traveling there eventually. Indiana, Massachusetts as well, and Colorado. You're going to get a chance to work with everyone who has been gracious enough to share with us this evening in our breakout rooms later on this evening. And now I'm going, hopefully, there we go. So I hail from New York City, where we are the largest school district in the United States, with 1 million students, of which we have a large percentage of English language learners, students with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged is the largest group. As such, differentiation is of paramount importance to us. To be able to reach all of our students, we can't teach in only one manner. We have to be able to incorporate as many different skills as possible. In doing that, I want to bring our attention to the conversation about equity in education. As many people have the perspective of equality versus equity is one of the issues in education today. When we talk about aligning our curriculum, we're talking about meeting the needs of diverse students. We're talking about making a connection between our actual curricula and the students' individual life worlds. Green chemistry is a uniquely opportune concept to bridge this gap. Equality in education is achieved when students are all treated the same. We're moving towards equity where they receive the resources they need and graduate prepared for success in that context. As such, we also want to leave a legacy for the generations that come following it. Using sustainable development, we actually are trying to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations, future students to come along with other educational compromises and concerns to be facilitated through their chemistry experience. Many of you may have been familiar with the traditional example where you have students against the fence and they're being barred from access to a particular concept, activity, or discipline. A lot of times the diagram has 3 different panels, one where they're completely blocked by a fence, one where they're supported by different needs, as in differentiation, as pedagogy, and one is often left behind is where you remove the barrier entirely. That's oftentimes seen as the most equitable solution. I'd like to present a third option, where there's actually acknowledgement of the inequity in resource distribution for students. A lot of times the reasons why they're having such a diverse experience with their educational acumen has to do with the resources that they may or may not have been recipients of. Green chemistry makes it so that every student has access to the curriculum from their own backgrounds. When you look at your own curriculum, as we're going to look later on this evening, questions to ask yourself are students actually getting what they individually need to succeed? Is this independent or inclusive of the curricular needs they have and the individual goals these students had? Questions to really end on are, have I taught the students or have I taught the curriculum? How have I succeeded in that manner? You'll see as we go forward, again, I keep plugging that green chemistry is going to be a solution to this. And it has a large facet of it has to do with what green chemistry really is, which you're going to hear a lot more from Ken. In green chemistry, students will feel like the standard. They become the basis for their own educational experiences. Every student will see a product that they've encountered in their own homes, in their own consumer products, as the examples used in their laboratories. Then it becomes part of the curriculum learning in authenticity and is actually scaffolded for their needs. I have actually included a number of resources that I'm citing in this discourse regarding equity, which will probably be appearing in a chat momentarily. So as I said before, we're looking at translating into relevance. So in the individual Regents chemistry curriculum, we have topics of physical behavior of matter, atomic structure, periodic table, bonding, and intermolecular forces. Over the course of the year, we pull labs that exhibit things like the actual candy they eat as an example for breaking down exothermic and endothermic reactions. The citric acid present is how the students actually consume their food on a regular basis, as both a preservative and as a flavor additive. That's what they'd be analyzing in the exo-endo lab in the first unit in my class. During the atomic structure unit, they're analyzing black box experiments. They're actually looking at the way gift-giving cultures administer their boons. Doing that makes students have a transparency toward Rutherford's experiments, analyzing unknown molecules and trying to figure out what the actual structure of the atom was. He couldn't see inside, neither do our students. Every lab that we do in green chemistry has a direct aspect that a student can literally bring a component from their home to the laboratory to analyze. As such, it's no longer a textbook they're learning from. They're learning from each other. When we shift things from where they are through sustainability and beyond benign lab replacement, we actually increase equity and access, which is one of the biggest incorporations of the new American curriculum. At this time, I'd like to take this opportunity to turn over to my grand colleague, Ken Hoffman.
Thanks, Scott. I think, Scott, in the interest of time, let's just go on to the next slide. The point I want to make is that the first step towards aligning your practice with green chemistry is that you're here. And I wanted to talk just ever so briefly about my experience. My entry into green chemistry was rather serendipitous. I happened to meet a leader in green chemistry education in Toronto when I was attending a chemical society function. And as a consequence of meeting him, he asked me to come and asked me if I would volunteer helping train the Canadian students for the Chemistry Olympiad. So our entry into this world can start with something as simple as a conversation, coming to an event like this or reaching out to somebody. And then consequently, I ended up going to the biennial chemical conference on education in Grand Valley State University in 2014. And Professor Andy Dix, who's a leader in North America in green chemistry education, he encouraged me to attend the conference and give a presentation. And he's been my mentor informally now for about 10 years, and encouraging me to share my ideas and develop them. And that led me to meeting Amy Cannon completely by happenstance in 2018. And she brought up the lead teacher program. And that has led me to being with you today. And through my ongoing encouragement and support from my mentor, Andy, I've been able to actually do some practitioner research. And I've been able to get two of these projects published in referee journals, which for a school teacher and a former chemist was a great, gave me a great sense of satisfaction. If you could go to the next slide, please. So by virtue of you being here, you are involved. And one of the ways I would encourage you to further immerse yourself in this community is to contact any of us. And Scott's here, and many of the other lead teachers are on the call, and we're spread across North America. Through the green chemistry community, you can find that there are communicators in your educators in your area, and Beyond Benign and the lead teacher program can help you connect with them. Attending a conference, a lot of teachers won't may be hesitant to go to like a large ACS conference, as I was at first. It was incredibly rewarding, and I can say without reservation, I was very warmly received. Greg's going to talk a bit later about the green chemistry teaching and learning community, something that Scott and I have been working on. And that's going to be a platform where professionals at our level, K through 12, can support one another and build community. And of course, through the ACS, there's also the Science Coach program. And I know there have been some lead teachers in our organization who've been involved in that. If you go to the next slide. So the point I want to make emphatically is to align your practice with green chemistry doesn't require a wholesale changing of your practice. It became clear to me that I was able to bring out aspects of my current practice and reframe them within a sustainability framework, that of the green chemistry principles. One of the articles that's going to be coming out in the next few months that Andy and I wrote delves into taking the 12 green chemistry principles and reframing them in student and teacher friendly language that's appropriate for the K-12 continuum. And so I want to start with waste prevention. The first of the 12 principles, that ideally we want to prevent waste rather than clean up waste after we're done. And we're already doing this, because one of the great expenses that many schools and school systems encounter is waste disposal. And although I've changed now to middle school, I did this last week when we were learning about pH in the environmental chemistry unit. I just did things on micro scale using centrifuge vials. And we got great results, and we achieved the learning outcomes, and we produced about 25 milliliters of waste. So that there is the application of sustainability principles and the green chemistry principles. If you can move on to the next one, please. Atom economy, that's something that I think is best suited for students in, say, grade 9, in my jurisdiction, grade 10 and 11, where we start getting into chemical formulas, and we can start looking at where atoms go. And atom economy has a direct relationship to mass conservation. I have an example a little later. That's at the grade 11 level that I can show you. And again, these are the green chemistry principles that you can apply in your classroom without making a huge change in what you're currently doing. Next slide, please. Now, less hazardous chemical synthesis. I know in Canada that we use the global harmonized system with the hazard symbols, and we use the workplace hazard management information system. In the United States, you have a slightly different system, but certainly you are giving consideration to hazard. And I'm going to show you on subsequent slides how this can be incorporated and how this delivers on the third green chemistry principle. Next slide, please. So what we have here is a gravimetric stoichiometry experiment that you might perform at the start of grade 11. You may do something like this in grade 9, even, when you're just teaching students how to make observation and record observations. And this is something I just pulled out of a textbook I just took off my shelf. But with the encouragement of Andy Dix, I looked at this experiment, this type of experiment I was already doing through the green chemistry lens. And this would be principle 3, less hazardous chemical synthesis. And I find that the hazard statements and the SDS sheets are very text dense. So I started using the National Fire Protection Association fire diamonds. And in the blue, you see the hazard, health hazard on a scale of 1 to 4, fire hazard in red, and reactivity hazard, and any additional information in the white. In case of lead nitrate, it's an oxidizer. And so a student can immediately see that this experiment it produces not just toxic products, but starts with toxic reactants. Could we use these green chemistry principles as a design criterion? And so I went through an optimization activity with my students, and we came up with what we have on the next slide here, that we were able to redesign the experiment to get a precipitate with about the same yield, and I'll return to yield in a second, but by mitigating the hazard. So we're touching on exactly the same learning standards, but we're doing so through a sustainability and a green chemistry principle lens. If you can go on, please. Now, this is a bit higher level, grade 11, I'd say. This is an application of atom economy. And atom economy is as simple as just ratioing the molar mass of the product with all the molar mass of the reactants. And this presents a great opportunity for kids to apply their knowledge of quantitative chemistry, because a child could redesign this experiment to maximize the molar mass of the product and minimize the molar mass of the waste, while referring to this NFPA fire diamonds to mitigate hazard. You can go on there, Scott. So why did I align my practice with green chemistry? I've been mentored by many great educators. One gentleman at the University of Saskatchewan who focused on a humanistic pedagogical focus, Professor Glenn Aikenhead, really got me thinking about student-centered learning. And I make reference here to this Royal Society of Chemistry study in 2021 that a survey of students and their teachers that reveals that kids are acutely aware that there are some serious problems facing them in their future in terms of sustainability. Our students are aware of this. To make the learning more relevant and to make the learning more authentic, I wanted to reframe the curriculum while retaining the integrity of the standards, reframe the curriculum through a sustainability lens. You can go on to the next slide, please. And here's another quote. These are two studies that show that this anxiety over scarcity of resources, of climate change, isn't just within a certain demographic. It isn't just within a certain geopolitical sphere. It's a widespread concern with young children. And having grown up in the Cold War and not being equipped with anything through my education to cope with this existential threat, I didn't want to put my students through that same worry that I dealt with as a young person. Next slide, please. Back over to you.
So at this time, let's try to, using the principles we've actually analyzed and discussed this tonight. We've talked about how sustainable curricula enhances student education. We've talked about how gravimetric analysis through the principles of green chemistry can increase students' access to atom economy, waste prevention, and equitable education as well. Now it's your turn. We're going to actually go into analyzing our own curriculum and have a discussion in our breakout rooms regarding where students are already succeeding in your curricula, where they need additional support, and whether or not what we are assessing in our individual curricula is what the students are learning. In doing that, we figure out how green chemistry would amend to those practices. So you'll see a link in the chat now. I'm going to switch to the screen so you can see what people are typing, and we're going to be going into breakout rooms. I'm going to turn it to Greg and Michelle to facilitate the breakout room setup.
So just one note before we do go into breakout rooms is that in order for a conversation to happen more intimately and to build kind of a connection, it's really helpful for people to turn on their cameras. You won't be recorded in the breakout rooms, and also to just really try to engage. Okay, and we're going to pause the recording now. We're going to ask the lead teachers to hang back from joining, and then we will go from there. So thanks for your patience.
Starting to share.
Okay, so thank you so much for being open and willing to have these conversations and interactions about curricular analysis. Looking over some of the slides that you guys contributed to, students are succeeding in
This is not
Students are succeeding in technology collaboration, metacognition, presentation skills, group work, and follow through. So they're already doing well with how they work with each other. Their social skills are improving. And they're already doing well with their presentation skills and their ability to collaborate with others. When asked about where they need additional support, the conversation shifted to foundational math and calculations and studying skills, how to analyze data and how to disconnect and apply real chemistry to what we're doing in the classroom. And finally, when asked to compare what you intended to teach with what the students actually walk out of the door knowing, some of those comments were how to pass a test, how to apply themselves to doing the work, the soft skills of project planning and technology, and how to learn what is relevant and filtrating out the things that don't bring much relevance to their own lives. This is a large part of what Ken and I were talking about this evening. Bringing relevance to a student's life comes from their being able to physically connect what appears in their classroom to what appears on their way to school, to what appears in their actual backpacks and their home experiences. One of the things that mentioning with the math skills, it's a lot easier to do math calculations when you're applying it to something that you see on a regular basis. One of our labs that I'm actually very fond of is the mold of rice lab, which is done in the stoichiometry unit. Doing that actually allows students to bring in their own small particles that they use in their home recipes to calculate and make stoichiometric inferences about mathematical applications. Doing that takes away the abstraction from mathematics and turns it into something they can take home and tell their parents about. Green chemistry bridges the gap, and I'm hoping you can start to transition to moving them more into your classroom experiences. Thank you. And back to Greg.
All righty. Thank you, Scott and Ken. That was fantastic and a great way to sort of wrap up the evening. If you would, please join us again for the next Observe, Wonder, Think, which will be on March 16th at 7 p.m. As always, feel free to check out and share our resources online at beyondbenign.org. If you happen to be attending ACS in March, stop by booth number 314, say hi. We're going to have 3 presenters during the event. I will be presenting on Sunday. Dr. John Warner will be speaking on Monday. And immediately following his presentation, Juliana Vidal will be presenting on marine biorefinery and green chemistry education, which should be pretty fascinating. But speaking of upcoming events, I really want to take just a moment to mention something that we are really, really excited to be offering. For a time now, we've been saying coming soon, and I am finally able to say coming this summer. So launching this summer 2023, we're going to be launching a joint initiative between Beyond Benign and the ACS Green Chemistry Institute with support from the sponsors that you see on the screen. This green chemistry teaching and learning community that Ken mentioned earlier is going to be a space for all of us to share our connect and learn. The resource hub for the GCTLC will host a central online searchable library of green chemistry education resources. It's going to include, but certainly not be limited to, lab experiments, lecture materials, in-class activities. It will allow users to create profiles, connect and network together, share ideas and resources, collaborate, give and receive feedback, as well as mentorship. It will also include job postings for students looking for careers in green chemistry. Users will find forum discussions, event listings, curated resource collections, and so much more. I'm a firm believer that if you tell a teacher about a resource, they're going to know about it. If you give them a resource, they will use it. It's using it is the difference that Beyond Benign and the GCTLC want to make. If you haven't done so already, then scan that QR code so that you see on your screen for more information about the green chemistry teaching and learning community and to remain current with the latest news. This project team will be reaching out to those who are on the newsletter list to help with some testing of the site, getting feedback, and providing opportunities to run through how to use the platform. That means there's going to be exciting groundwork opportunities for those in this group. So make sure you scan the code, share the code, and be a part of this exciting launch. As a reminder also, we offer virtual professional development opportunities for middle and high school teachers over the summer. Optional graduate credits for each course are available. We have some sponsorships available for teachers in New York, Oregon, Washington State, and for those for an environmental justice community. So share this information with colleagues that you may know in those areas. More information for these online courses, as well as dates and times, can be found by going to the link on the screen. Thank you again to our sponsors who help make this monthly event possible. Don't forget to click that link or go to that link and sign up to receive the free book. One last time, thank you to Scott and Ken for sharing their time, their talents, their positive energy for the green chemistry community. So thanks for joining us tonight. We sure look forward to seeing you again next month. Good night and be well.